So this is our family history consultant training. First thing we wanted to talk about was the purpose of family history. So first, real quick, raise of hands. How many of you have done family history stuff before? Okay, everybody, great. You've probably heard a lot about why we do it, but just as a recap, we've got the classic scripture in Malachi about turning the heart of the children to their fathers, and so when we as family history consultants help people do their family history, we're in part helping to fulfill that scripture, which is kind of cool. Um, uh, Also, we do family history to help people do temple work for their own ancestors, and we'll explain a little bit more about why that's important. It brings your family together, so it helps kind of strengthen your relationship with your family that's still alive, and there's lots of blessings involved. So we have this quote here by Richard G. Scott. Does someone want to read it?
Do you young people want a sure way to eliminate the influence of the adversary in your life? Immerse yourself in searching for your ancestors. Prepare their names for the sacred vicarious ordinances available in the temple. And then go to the temple and stand as proxy for them to receive the ordinances of baptism and the gift of the Holy Ghost. As you grow older, you'll be able to participate in receiving the other ordinances as well. I can think of no greater protection from the influence of the adversary in your life.
So as you can see here, this is Richard G. Scott when he was still alive. It was as an apostle in General Conference, and he was a pretty big advocate for family history work. But this is one of the best quotes, I think, because it's a promise from an apostle telling you that if we do family history work and we take those names that we find to the temple, it's basically like a guaranteed way to keep Satan out of our lives, which is pretty cool. And then let's see, Emily, you want to read this one?
R.W. Hunter taught, we must accomplish the priesthood temple ordinances work necessary for our own exaltation. Then we must do the necessary work for those who did not have the opportunity to accept the gospel in life. Doing work for others is accomplished in two steps. First, by family history research to ascertain our progenitors, and second, by performing the temple ordinances to give them the same opportunities afforded to the living. Yet there are many members of the church who have only limited access to temples. They do the best they can. They pursue family history research and have the temple work ordinance done by others. Conversely, there are some members who engage in temple work, but fail to do family history research on their own family lines. Although they perform a divine service in assisting others, they lose blessings by not seeking their own kindred dead, as divinely directed by Latter-day Prophets. I have learned that those who engage in family history research and then perform the temple ordinance work for those whose names they have found will know the additional joy of receiving both halves of the blessing, end quote.
So actually, we heard about this in Ward Council not too long ago. Brother Nickel was talking about this quote where basically doing temple work is great, and you get blessed for doing that, but then you also get another blessing by doing the family history research involved as well. So by doing family history and taking those names to the temple, we're getting both halves of these big blessings from the Lord. So to the purpose of this training, is basically to help you guys become more familiar with family history work and research if you aren't already acquainted with it, and to empower you to help others with their family history as a consultant. And then finally, we want to brainstorm and plan future family history work in the ward and things that we want to accomplish. So we came up with a list. Me and Janae met on Sunday and came up with some like common questions that we think people will ask you as a consultant, and we're going to talk about how to deal with those and how to answer them and work with them. So one of the most common ones is where do I start? So a lot of people are just kind of overwhelmed with the whole idea of family history, and so when they get to this point, they're like, I don't even know what to do, and so they kind of just don't do anything. And so there's a very clear, quick way to get started. And so we wrote down some bullet points here, but we'll talk through them. So the first thing that really helps is for them to get a 4-generation pedigree done, so they can write it down or put it in family history or familysearch.org. But basically, like if they don't have anything, just sit down with them and start adding that stuff in or writing it down somewhere for them to reference it. And if they don't know something, have them call their family or text them or whatever. And once they have that information, they'll be in a lot better position to start with research. But there are some people who have, like, let's say they're a convert, a recent convert, or something like that, and their family is not very approving of them doing family history work for some reason. First thing I would say would be have them pray about it and see what they think. But also, if worst case scenario, if they can't find anything on their own and they're not getting any help from their family, there's always indexing and other things that they can do to contribute to family history. But basically, if you get the 4-generation chart done, and you're basically working towards people that are already dead, that's when you can start doing research and finding more information on people. And we'll go over that a little bit more later when we talk about filling in gaps, but that's the really good starting point. So another common concern that you'll see is people will say like, oh, all of my work's already done. My great-great-grandma was a family history master, and she filled out every single thing there is to fill all the way back to Adam. And it's kind of like a lie we tell ourselves that all our work is done, because family history work isn't done ever, pretty much. Unless everybody in the whole world has been taken to the temple and received their saving ordinances, family history work is not done. So, but there are some people that I have heard of or seen that do have their line all the way back to Adam, whatever, complete done, some kind of miracle in their lives. But that doesn't mean that it's actually completely done. So this picture of the tree right here is kind of what that's like. So like this could be like their line all the way back to Adam, but then there's other parts of the tree that they can also contribute to that they haven't been. It's just not as obvious as your direct line. So basically what they can do is they can work back. So let's say they've got all the way to Adam, but all the sideways parts of the tree are not filled out. So you can go back like a bunch of generations back past the 110-year line where you have to ask for permission, and then you can go and say like go to like your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and then you look at their children, and then you go from their children down like another line, and you can do the work for those people as long as they've been dead long enough. And so there's lots of like kind of hidden avenues that you can do, just getting a little bit more creative with it. And another really cool thing you can do, let's say you get a lot of work done, but there's not a lot of like information other than like their birth date and like their name and stuff. You can look up more information about their actual lives and memories and all that other stuff and start attaching it to your family tree, which is, it's really cool because you get to kind of get to know them more than just like the data about them, and it becomes a lot more, interesting to like look at. And then always there's indexing, so if they really think all their work is done, they can always index. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple of demos here. So let's take a minute. Is everyone able to log into their own family search account / are you logged in? I'm going to go there myself. So you don't necessarily have to follow along, but if you want to, you're welcome to on your computer. So let's say I have somebody that I want to do temple work for. You can usually see that in this little tab here. You can see a lot of open ordinances. This might take a little while. Let's go back actually. Is it Arthur? Yeah. So if I go to Arthur, so I can see that this green temple here means that you can request their ordinances to do their ordinances for them. And this guy, I checked him out earlier. He actually has pretty complete information. Usually before you reserve these, you want to just take a double check at it and make sure that the information all looks legit and that there's no like possible duplicates. So you're not like just repeating the same work for somebody that's already had it. So if you hit request, the one request is baptism. And it'll give you like this big list, a big like info sheet here about the rules of who you can do ordinances for and things like that. So if you're ever unsure about whether or not you can do the ordinances for this person, just go through these and just do like a mental checklist. Okay, like make sure that they're related to you and that they're not famous and all this other stuff, or like a Holocaust victim. And if you're sure about all that stuff, then you hit accept. And it floats over here, which I didn't know it did that. That's kind of cool. And so now I can see here on my temple thing, I'll have a reserved ordinance here. And then I think if I click here, let's see, how do I print it off? Is it this one? I have to tick the checkbox. That's what it is. Checkbox, and then you can print it at your printer. So that's one common thing that people always want to know about. So we wanted to make sure we covered that. Does anyone have any questions about how to do that? Okay, good. Plus, we'll always have this video, so you're welcome to refer back to this video. Okay, so that's how you take a name to the temple. Basically, after that, you have the card printed out. You take it to the temple, you do the ordinance, you give them the card, and they will record it and then give you the card back so that you know it's been done. Okay, so we're going to go back to presenting here. We're going to talk about filling gaps in the tree. So this is like kind of like where it comes back to actual doing family history research. So the majority of people that you help are going to have gaps in their tree, just some part where there's just no parents or no children or something like that. And you want to find more information about what should be in that gap. So there's kind of a process. It's more common sense than you think. There's not like any magic tricks or anything to that. And basically, what you need to do is you need to start like closer to you in like time. So like if it's really old, come a little bit closer to like more recent, and look at the information on those people, and you'll see, okay, what information do I have on them? You can look at the records and stuff. We're gonna go through it here in a second, but if you look at their records, you can usually see like, okay, if I'm looking for somebody's parents, let me look at the child I do have and see if I can find their birth certificate or something. And if you can find a birth certificate, it should tell you who their parents are, and then you can kind of start filling those gaps. But sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes like the child doesn't have enough information, and so you have to go kind of like more and more recent until you get like a really solid one, and then you start working your way back from there. But the most important thing you can learn and help others learn while they're doing family history is that they need to follow the spirit. Because when you do family history, a lot of times it'll seem like it's impossible to find some kind of entry or some missing person, but then the spirit will inspire you to do something unorthodox or something you wouldn't have thought of, and you'll find it. And it's really cool. It's one of the things that makes family history really interesting. So we're going to do another demo here. And let's have everyone just try this. We're not going to, there's no guarantee that we're going to fix it right now, but I'll go back to here. And we go to my family tree. And I'll just kind of walk you through the process here of kind of like what you would do in that situation. So I'm just going to go back until I find a gap somewhere. Okay, so like right here, right? So Harriet Barrows is missing her mom and dad. So go ahead and find your own gap for a second, and then once you're all ready, we'll continue. Yeah, that's a good point to make too. People are afraid to make changes to the tree, but if you feel the spirit about a change, or if you just kind of like found some information that you think is reliable, don't be like too scared because the tree is kind of like a living document. People edit it all the time, and so if you mess something up, someone else is probably gonna figure it out, or you'll figure it out. So it's not as big of a deal as it seems. So while you guys are doing that, kind of want to talk through a few things that are kind of common people ask about. These little symbols on people are asked about a lot. So this blue one with like the little like kind of like index card on it that's like folded. It's called. It means that there's record hints. So record hints are really nice because if I look at this person for a second. So you'll see here on the right, I've got these three blue icons, and these are actual records that have been indexed already, and they're just sitting around on Family Search, and they're like suggestions. So like it said, you have all this information. So I have this guy named Edward Rice Knox with his birthday and everything else in it. It automatically kind of like in the background will search for stuff about him, and then suggest it here. So like right here, I could say, oh, there's a Veterans Administration index here, and I can look at this and say, oh, does this look like him? This guy lived in Nebraska, but this is from California, but he did die in California in 1963, and it looks like it's the same information. And that can be helpful because it helps you find extra information about them. And you can attach these. See, there's this button for attaching. So the more stuff you attach and the more information you get into these, the more it can like suggest and help you find new stuff. Also, this red exclamation point. These are really easy. Like they look really bad, but they're super easy to fix. It basically just tells you like things that are usually it's like the standardized information problem. So like let's say so if I look at this guy, so it says he's missing a standardized marriage place. So let me see if I can find what that's talking about. Where was he married? Oh, right here. It says they were married in Wayne, Ohio. So you can edit this, and it doesn't like that we don't have a standard selected. So basically, it's just saying you have the right information, but we don't like how you wrote it down because it's not easy for us to search. So you basically just choose one of these that closely fits. So if I saved like that one, now it's standardized and it's okay, and I hit save, and then that goes away. And usually, see, like the cool thing about that is, so once you fix those, Family Search goes out and finds more stuff. So these purple ones point you to like new people that you're potentially missing. So this says both of these say the couple may have more children. If you click on this, it shows you kind of like why they think that, and you can go look it up. So it's super handy. The more information that you fix in your tree, the more information Family Search has, and they can recommend better stuff to you. So a lot of times, like if they don't have anything that being suggested to them, or they can't find more information on that person, usually it's just because you have to go back and fix a bunch of stuff. And if you do that, Family Search just goes like, boop, here's like a million people for you to baptize. It's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely like if you see those things and you're getting stuck, definitely take a look at those and see if you can get a couple of those resolved. Okay, so I've got Caroline Morris is missing her parents, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the person right before, so the child of this person, of these missing people, and look at their record. So it brings up all the stuff you have on them. So you can see I've got her name, but I don't have her birth date or her death date, it looks like, which is kind of a big problem. So you may not even know really if she exists. So that's kind of an issue. So you basically, usually when there's a blank, it usually means you just don't have enough information on their children yet. So you can start searching for stuff. I want to look at the sources because I want to know where they got this person from. So you can see there's marriages. So there's a bunch of marriage records, and like literally all of them are marriage records. Oh, there's a birth. Oh, it's for her daughter. So there's a birth entry for her daughter, but not for her. And usually the easiest way to find someone's like parents is to find their birth certificate, because if you can find their birth certificate, it usually lists the parents on there. And so basically what you want to do then is we want to start leveraging the search part of familysearch.org. So I'm going to do that. So usually what I do is I like to make a new tab because it's easier to kind of go back and forth and look at all the information. Then you go to search, and then this is where you kind of put in the information about the person you want to search for. So this lady's name is Caroline Morris. And we don't know where she was born, I think. If I go back to her details, we just know that she was born somehow. And we don't know where she died. Do we know when she was married, though? Let's find out. So she was married in 1851. So sometimes you kind of have to do a little bit of like reasoning for these kind of things. So she was married in 1851. Most people get married by the time they're like 30, right? So I'm going to guess she was born somewhere between 1820 and like, several years after that, like 1835. We don't know where she was born. And I think she's probably in the United States. They were married in Tennessee. So I'm just going to guess that it was the United States. You don't have to fill any of this out. It's just kind of like the more specific you can get, the higher chance you have of finding somebody. So I'm just going to try United States. If I don't find anything, then we'll mess around with that. And you can also add relationships. So like if you want to look for somebody who had a spouse named whatever. So I know her spouse was named Thomas. So then you can add that in too. And then I hit search. And then you can start looking for information about this. So basically then you would look through these and see if you can find any that seem like they match. And if you find one that matches the person, then you would look at the record itself. And then if you find these things, you can like attach them and add them to like the source box. And I'm trying to figure out where you would do it on here. Okay, so there's like her marriage record, right? This is her getting married in Tennessee in 1851 to T.J. Capps, which we know is Thomas Jefferson Capps. So I'm related to Thomas Jefferson, guys. Capps. So there is a. This is seems a little bit too early. Let's see. So this lady was born in England. So like this is basically where it's going to change kind of every time depending on what you do. But you look for, see if you can find a birth record, see if you can find information about these people. If you can't find their birth record after trying pretty hard and praying about it, then you may want to take a step back. So let's say I can't find Caroline Morris's birth record. So let's go back to the family tree. So instead of starting with Caroline, then I want to go back another step. So basically, you want to treat her like a blank, and then go back to Kate. And then you look at Kate, and you look for her birth record, and all that stuff. And then if you find enough information to support that her mom actually is Caroline, then you go back again and try and find Caroline. And then you just keep doing that. It's kind of like a rinse and repeat until you can fill those kind of gaps. So I say blanks. When I say blanks, I'm talking about like the empty spots in the tree. So like this is a blank. And then what I was saying earlier was like basically if you can't figure out if this person really exists, treat her like a blank and then come back to her children and try and get back to her. Basically the answer is always you want to start over here on the left and then work your way back to the right if you are in doubt about somebody. Yeah, you can either keep going or if that's just becoming very frustrating, you don't want to like waste too much time. If you feel like you're not gonna find something, you can always just go to a different blank. Like I'm sure there's probably gonna be more than one, and don't get like frustrated. Just kind of like pray about it, and then try and go somewhere that you think will be helpful. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is how to like enrich your family history. So there's actually an app for this on the App Store. It's called Memories. They also let you do it on their website, I think. But basically, you can attach things that like are basically memories in digital form about that person to the tree. And what's cool about that is when you attach those, it kind of like makes it less of like a data point and more of a person, which is part of the purpose of family history. Is to kind of turn your heart to them and help you understand them. And it gets really interesting because sometimes you'll find these attached to some like really really like far back ancestors, and it really kind of like enlightens you about what your heritage is like. And you don't have to go and find like some really old one. You could always just make new ones. So let's say like your grandma is still alive and you want to remember something about her. You could like interview her and record it. You could take pictures of her or video or not videos, but like write things down from her journal or whatever. And you can attach those to the family tree. And we're going to show you to do that. So we're going to go over here. And it's really simple to do this. Basically, you just click on a person and go to. Yeah, I think you can. Yeah. Um, so you just click on a person. It could be any person in your family tree. And then there's this tab called Memories here, or you could use the Memories app. And it's really simple. You just go to the section. So if you have a picture of them, you just click upload and then you just put it in there. So Janae's got something you want to show it off? Yeah. Um, it's really cool because like if when you find one, it's really neat, and it's also really cool when you make one because then it's like you've contributed to your family's actual history, and your kids or grandkids or whatever will be able to go back and look at this stuff and see, about their great great grandpa that they never met. All right, so the next thing we wanted to cover is indexing. So we kept mentioning it. Like, there's always, if you feel like there's nothing else for you to do, you can always work on indexing. But indexing is really really important because all this data that we rely upon in the records that we find and all that stuff in Family Search, it all comes from indexing. And so basically, what indexing is it's a way for the church and for Family Search to take information from physical records like papers and recorded things from all over and put them into this huge database that Family Search uses. And it's relatively simple to actually do. So if you click on this indexing thing at the top of familysearch.org and just click on it, it'll take you to this page. And there's this big button here where you click Find a Project. So if you click that, it allows you to kind of pick like an area. So this is kind of like where the record is coming from. So let's say you went on a mission and you spoke Spanish. You could try and do some of Mexico's records or Spain's records or something. But let's keep it simple and do United States for now. And then it'll show you basically all the indexing projects that are ongoing for that part of the world. And you can take a look at different projects and decide kind of like which one sticks out to you, something you want to try. So I'm just going to try this Ohio World War I draft registration cards. And it's really easy. All you do is you hit start indexing and it'll start loading everything for you. And see, it pulls up this screen. And so right here on the left, you see this project instructions. You want to look at this before you do just about anything else when you're indexing, and it basically tells you exactly how to do it. So it tells you exactly what they want you to take out of these pictures. So it tells you make sure you index all draft registration cards. Some cards may be outside this project's date range, but go ahead and index them anyways. And then it has a picture of an example of a draft registration card so you know what they look like. And also how to index one. So if you click this, it'll show you an example registration card. And then it shows you all the information they got out of it and where it was. So they try and make it as easy as possible for you to like know what to do. And then after you do that, so then first thing it does is it tells you there's 5 images in this batch, so 5 cards that we'll have to index. And then it tells you to go through first and make sure they're all something that fits the scope of this project. So it told us to do all registration cards. So all we have to do is make sure this is a registration card. And if it is, then it's just set it to yes and hit next image. And this one is also a registration card, registration card, registration card. Okay, so we made sure they were all registration cards, and then it tells you all the stuff that it wants you to fill out. So this basically all you do now is you look at the image and you can zoom in. And you can see there's the first name, it looks like it's Henry. And then the last name, does that say Raven? Looks like Raven or something. It's a pretty cool last name if that's what it is. But sometimes something junior, right? It can be kind of hard sometimes to like read their handwriting, but Family Search has tried to make it really easy for you to figure that out. So they provide these tools. So this tool is the handwriting tool, and this tool gives you a bunch of examples of all the different letters in all kinds of weird cursive and like styles of writing. And sometimes if you're not sure what a letter is, you can open this up and then like zoom in and kind of compare and see if you can figure it out. So it looks like Rauen, like Rowan, which sounds like kind of German or something. That would be my guess. But it doesn't have to be perfect because keep in mind when you do indexing and you index these records, you're not going to be the only person that indexes them. So you may index it one way and do it wrong, then the next person will do it right. It gets indexed like I think like 3 or 4 or 5 times before it actually goes through. Yeah. And they have the people that are really good at indexing, they're called arbitrators. They get pulled in and they are like the best of the best and they verify these things too. So it's pretty hard to mess up. Yeah, that's the next thing I'm going to show them. So sometimes these can get kind of blurry or like difficult to read. So they have a lot of tools for you to do that. So there's this adjust image thing. So let's say it was rotated. You could rotate it if you want. And there's also this adjust image. So this lets you play around with the brightness and the contrast. So the brightness is just how much white is in there. And then the contrast is kind of like the difference between the black and white. And so you can like play around with these and sometimes you can get a better looking image by playing around with these. And then you can hit apply and you can try and read it at that time. Or sometimes it also helps to invert and look at it white on black instead of black on white. So yeah, so they give you lots of tools. They try and make it as easy as possible for you to kind of figure out what all this stuff does. But essentially the process that you rinse and repeat is you just go through, you record all the information. The ones with asterisks are the required ones to keep going. And then you just keep going. And when you finish, it'll just go back to Family Search and it'll be marked as complete. And there are times, let's say you start a batch and then you realize you can't finish it or it's just really hard for you to read and you can't decipher it. So if you go back to the indexing page, you'll see this My Batches right here. And you can hit Manage. and if you select this, you can return it, and then it's just like nothing ever happened. So pretty cool. It has like it lets you like set kind of like you can see your progress. So you can see how much you indexed over the last month and stuff like that. So it's kind of like you can set goals or something if you want and just track it. It's kind of cool. You can even have a target. So right here, see that's like a goal. But yeah, indexing is cool. I used to do it a lot more than I do it now, but it's getting better every day, and it's something that anyone can do, regardless of how much information they have on their family. Okay, moving. Does anyone have any questions about indexing? Anything else that I showed off? Yeah, we're almost done. So thanks for sticking with us so far. Okay, so now we've kind of gone over like all the basic things that you'll do as a consultant. We want to go over to how to actually help someone else with their family history. And the church has made some tools to help, like to make it easier to help other people. And so the first thing we want to do is we're going to go to FamilySearch.org again. Hopefully you're seeing a pattern now. We always go to FamilySearch.org. And at the top right, there's this help drop down. Does everyone see that? So let's say like someone came up to you at church and they were like, hey, I could really use some help with my family history. Could you stop by sometime and kind of help me figure it out? You would say, sure. And you would go here. And before your appointment with them or your time with them, you click help, and then you go down to the bottom where it says helper resources. And you click on that, and that'll take you to this page. And this page has helper resources. So there's like just general information about family history and things like that from prophets and apostles. But then also there's this button right here that says add someone to the planner. So if you hit this, it allows you to search in the Word directory. So let's say like Janae wanted my help, just out of, whoops. So you type in their name, you'll see there's Janae, and I'll select her. And there's two ways to add them. You can either get their email address, this is probably the easier way, or if they know their helper number or how to find it, you can use that too. So if I use Janae's email address, janae.toon@gmail.com, and I hit OK, so now that'll send her an email. So yep. So now you can see like Janae accepted that email request from me, and so I can view her family history. So when you click on their name, they take you to this really cool page. So it'll show you all kinds of stuff. So it'll show you a bunch of record hints that are waiting to be processed on their family tree. People that have temple ordinances that you can work with, or extra information they need to go to the temple. So this is like a lot of really good starting points. Like if someone needs help with family history, you can look at all these and be like, oh, Janae needs help with record hints. I could help her with that, or other things like that. So that's really handy. Yeah, yeah, it is really handy. You can look at their family tree. So this is Janae's family tree, and you can switch it from a fan chart to the actual family tree or whatever you want. And you can say, okay, it looks like there's stuff missing here, so let me see if I can help her fill that out. Basically, you'll open this up before you go to visit them, and you'll look at what are some potential things that you could help them with. And you can actually take notes, I think, yeah, right here, and you can take notes on things you want to help them with, or set plans with them, stuff like that. So like you could actually make like a whole lesson plan in this thing if you wanted to. And will you do that? I don't know, but it'd be pretty. You could at least keep your notes in here and use that as like your outline. So a lot of really cool tools here. This is something that's pretty new, and I think it's a great idea. I think it'll help us a lot when we try and help other people with their family history. Does anyone have any questions about how to get here or how to use these tools? So if you want to do that for yourself, then you go back to that page we were just at, the helper resources, and it'll show you people you are helping. Yeah, it has your name right here. So then you click your name instead, and it'll open it up for you. Yep. And then if you're done helping somebody and you don't want to see them in here anymore, there's like a little trash can icon that you can click. My page isn't loading right now, but you just click that and it'll take them off your list and you won't be able to get into their stuff anymore. And I think they can also revoke access from you. So like if they're not comfortable with you looking at it anymore, they can remove you from it. But yeah, so that's kind of like, as far as tools go, that's a really good one to know. So like I can remove Janae now that I'm done working with her stuff, and now she's gone. So that's the helper tools. And then there's, besides the tools, there's also kind of like the process of like, how do you help someone? How do you like, what's like the actual like physical process? So we talked about like, let's set up an appointment. You want to add them to the helper tools, like we just did. And a big thing that people probably will overlook sometimes is you need to pray like a lot when it comes to family history, because it's not always just what tools you have or what data points you're looking at. It's a lot about getting help from the Holy Ghost and receiving like little revelations from the Lord on what needs to happen next in their family history. So you definitely want to pray, especially if you're like reviewing their family history records or hints on their tree, and start to make like a small plan about how you want to get them going with family history. So like that tool we had up with like the lesson plan, you start taking notes about their stuff you want to talk to them about and kind of get that planned out. And then you'll visit them, either at their home or have them come over to visit you, and you'll basically minister to them with family history. So you'll go through their family history with them, help them, gain a testimony of family history work, and also help them find those things that you found while looking at their tree. And after that, after your visit, you want to give them like some homework, give them something to do, invite them to continue on that same path that you were already on. Let's say you found a new person while you're with them. Okay, now how about by the next time I see you, how about you add some memories about them, or you look up their parents or something like that. Always give them like some give them some homework, because that'll help them kind of get their testimony on family history work on their own and feel the Spirit on their own without just having a consultant there all the time. There's kind of like a more detailed version of this in Gospel Library. So like if you want to like look at more detail and get some more like tidbits of information about how to help people, you can go in the Gospel Library app and go to Temple and Family History and Temple of Family History Consultants, and there's a section called How to Learn How to Help Others, and you can look at that too.